8:45 a.m. You are staring at the join meeting button on your calendar, feeling the familiar weight in your chest. You probably assume your exhaustion comes from the impossible deliverables, the passive-aggressive emails, CC'd to upper management, or the micromanagement, disguised as quick sync-ups. It doesn't. The actual root of your burnout is something much more dangerous. Hope. You log in, hoping today will be rational, hoping the corporate machine will finally validate your sacrifices. That hope is a tactical vulnerability. The most resilient professionals survive by actively killing it before they even open their inbox. Once you learn how to weaponize this exact loss of hope, their office politics can never touch you again. We are not here to practice mindfulness or find inner peace. The corporate ecosystem is not designed for your peace. It is designed to extract your output until you are obsolete. We are here to install a mental firewall. Think of Stoicism, not as ancient philosophy, but as an operational algorithm. It is a tactical framework engineered to bypass the emotional traps set by manipulative managers and constantly shifting KPIs. You cannot fix a toxic company culture, nor can you reason with an erratic stakeholder. But you can completely control the access they have to your psychological bandwidth. In this briefing, we will deploy specific defensive protocols to neutralize workplace exploitation and reclaim your cognitive load. Pay attention. Your survival tomorrow depends on it. To survive the modern workplace, you must first map the battlefield. The threats are not physical, they are psychological. They are engineered to drain your bandwidth, exploit your sense of responsibility, and convert your anxiety into free labor. The system is designed to keep you reactive. We are going to make you surgical. Let us dismantle these threats one by one. Threat 1. The weaponized urgency. It is 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. A Slack message appears from your project manager. Urgent. Need this deliverable updated ASAP from Monday's sync. Client is getting restless. The task is not actually urgent. It is a fabricated crisis, a byproduct of their poor time management or inability to manage client expectations, which is now being downloaded directly onto your weekend. They are transferring their panic into your workflow, Seneca wrote. We are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it. Do not reply immediately. Immediate responses. Train your colleagues that your boundaries are conditional and that your personal time is merely a buffer for their incompetence. Instead, acknowledge the message at 8:55 a.m. on Monday. Reply with a sterile, emotionless status update. Received, adding this to the queue, ETA for completion is 2 p.m. Do not apologize for the weekend silence. Do not explain your absence. Urgency is a virus that requires a host to survive. When you refuse to panic, you starve the virus of its oxygen. By forcing the communication into an asynchronous, strictly business hours format, you re-establish the structural hierarchy of time. They expect a frantic, subservient reaction that validates their crisis. By offering a cold, logistical timeline, you force them to absorb their own anxiety instead of processing it through you. You remain the master of your bandwidth. Threat 2. The infinite revision loop. You submit a completed project that meets the initial brief. The client or stakeholder replies with vague, contradictory feedback. Make it pop more. Can we try a different vibe? It just doesn't feel right yet. They refuse to sign off, holding your workflow hostage in a state of perpetual tweaking. They are siphoning your creative energy to mask their own lack of vision and fear of commitment. Epictetus stated, "The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control, and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Stop trying to please an unpleasable metric. You control the structure, they control the preference, isolate the two, reply with a binary compartmentalized checklist. To finalize this asset, please select option A, current layout, or option B, revised layout per your notes. Any further structural changes fall outside the initial scope will require a new ticket and will push the deployment deadline to Q3. Vague feedback is a power play. It keeps you subordinate, constantly guessing, and perpetually working. The scope lockdown removes the emotion and replaces it with friction. You're no longer an endless well of free iterations. You are a toll booth by attaching a logistical consequence, a new ticket, a delayed deadline, budget implications to their indecision. You shift the cognitive load back onto them. They must now take responsibility for the delay, which almost always forces a sudden miraculous approval. Threat 3. The Omnipresent Micromanager. This is the supervisor who demands daily status reports, questions your methodology on minor tasks, and insists on being CC'd on every mundane email. They disguise their behavior as ensuring alignment or staying in the loop. They do not want productivity. They want the illusion of control because they are terrified of their own irrelevance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Do not fight the micromanagement. Weaponize it. Overcomply. Send them exhaustive, hyper-detailed daily logs of every minor action you take. CC them on every single low-level correspondence, including vendor follow-ups and IT tickets. Bury them in the raw, unfiltered data of your workflow. When they ask for a quick update, send them a spreadsheet. Micromanagers thrive on the assumption that you are withholding information. When you fight them, you validate their paranoia. By flooding their inbox with granular, mind-numbing data, you turn their surveillance against them. You make the act of monitoring you exhaustively painful. Eventually, the sheer volume of information becomes a critical liability to their own time management. They will be forced to retreat and grant you autonomy, simply to save their own bandwidth and clear their inbox. Threat 4. The Performative Martyr. The colleague who loudly announces they were online at 2 a.m. The one who sends emails on Sunday mornings just to ensure the timestamp is visible to upper management. They are attempting to set a baseline of toxic productivity, forcing the rest of the team into a silent competition of who can suffer the most. Seneca observed, "It is a rough road that leads to the heights of greatness." But he also warned against those who busy themselves with useless toil. Never praise their overtime. Never apologize for logging off at 5 p.m. In meetings, when they highlight their lack of sleep or skip lunches, redirect the conversation entirely to output metrics. Look at them blankly and say, "You worked all weekend on this. Understood. Let's review the conversion rate data to see if the extra hours yielded a proportional ROI. Performative hustle relies entirely on social validation. They are trading their sanity for applause and corporate brownie points. When you withhold the applause and ruthlessly pivot to cold, hard results, you strip their sacrifice of its currency. You establish a terrifying truth for them. Hours worked do not equal value generated. By remaining a strictly rational observer, you refuse to be pulled into their anxiety spiral, leaving them to burn out in a vacuum of their own making. Threat 5. The corporate family illusion. Town halls, where executives call the staff a family, Pizza parties offered in lieu of overtime pay or structural bonuses. Guilt trips for taking your legally allotted PTO because the team needs you, or we are in crunch time. It is emotional manipulation designed to blur the line between a transactional contract and personal loyalty. Epictetus commanded, know your role and play it well. Mentally demote the company. It is not your family. It is a financial entity that leases your skills by the hour. When pressured to take on unpaid emotional labor or sacrifice your off hours for the culture, respond with polite, impenetrable bureaucracy. I am currently at capacity with my core deliverables. Which of these current KPIs should I deprioritize to accommodate this new request? The family narrative works by making you feel guilty for operating logically. You wouldn't charge your mother for helping her move, so why would you charge your work family for staying late? By enforcing a strict prioritization framework, you force management to acknowledge the zero-sum reality of your time. You are unmasking the corporation. You are forcing them to speak the language of business, capacity, deliverables, KPIs, rather than the language of emotional extortion. They cannot argue with capacity. They can only argue with attitude. Give them a perfect, compliant attitude wrapped in an impenetrable wall of logistical constraints. Threat 6. The idea thief. You share a concept during a casual brainstorming session or a one-on-one. 2 days later, a colleague presents that exact concept in a department-wide meeting, taking full ownership while you sit in the Zoom grid, watching them harvest the praise. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, to expect bad men not to do wrong is madness. Do not erupt in anger or accuse them of theft during the meeting. That makes you look volatile. Instead, reclaim the narrative with collaborative subversion. Unmute yourself and say, I'm glad you brought up the concept we discussed on Tuesday. To build on my original premise, the next logical phase for deployment would be, the idea thief relies on your silence and your fear of appearing disruptive. By framing the presentation as an extension of your established work, you do not look petty. You look like the senior strategist guiding a junior partner. You establish a public ledger of origin without ever raising your voice. You reclaim your intellectual property by outmaneuvering them in real time, proving that while they can steal the headline, they cannot replicate the architecture. Threat 7. The vague let's touch base ambush. A calendar invite appears with no agenda, no context, and the terrifying title, Quick Chat or Touch Base. This is an ambush tactic. It is designed to catch you off guard, forcing you to react in real time to a problem, a critique, or an assignment you had no time to prepare for. Seneca advised, to bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength and burden. Never accept a blind meeting. Treat your calendar like a secure facility. Reply immediately. Happy to connect. To ensure I come prepared and respect your time, please forward the agenda or the specific deliverables you'd like to review. If they refuse to provide an agenda tentatively, decline the meeting, citing a conflict with a deep work block. The blind invite is a disruption of your mental equilibrium. By demanding an agenda, you force the initiator to do the cognitive work before the meeting begins. You strip away their element of surprise. If it is a legitimate work issue, they will provide the context. If it is an emotionally driven ambush, the friction of having to write down their grievances often diffuses the attack entirely. You protect your peace by enforcing the rules of engagement. Threat 8, the toxic positivity enforcer, the HR representative or manager who insists every problem is an opportunity and forbids the acknowledgement of burnout or systemic failure. They mandate smiles during restructurings and label any critical analysis of a failing project as being not a team player, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Do not argue with their delusion, but do not participate in the masquerade. When faced with toxic positivity masking a disaster, respond with cold, clinical risk assessment. I appreciate the optimism. However, my role requires me to flag structural liabilities. Currently, our timeline is mathematically incompatible with our resources. Here is the data. Toxic positivity is an avoidance mechanism used by weak leadership to escape accountability. When you refuse to validate the fantasy, you become the encore to reality. By presenting raw math and risk assessments, you make their forced cheerfulness look negligent. You do not complain. You diagnose. You force them to deal with the reality of the situation on paper, completely removing the emotional camouflage they rely on. Threat 9. The scope creep. A project is agreed upon, but slowly, imperceptibly, one small favor is added. Then, just a quick addition. Before you realize it, the project has doubled in size, the deadline remains the same, and your compensation has not changed. Epictetus observed, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Be willing to look unhelpful. The moment a request falls outside the documented brief, halt production." This is an interesting direction. Since this alters the original scope of work, I will pause current execution until we have a revised brief, an adjusted timeline, and alignment on the new deliverables. Scope creep relies on your desire to be seen as easy to work with. It weaponizes your agreeable nature. The transactional freeze halts this momentum. By pausing the work entirely, you transfer the panic of the deadline back to them. You make it clear that your compliance has a literal cost. They can have the new features, but they must buy them with time or resources. You stop being a victim of the project and become its auditor. At the end of the quarter, when the servers undergo maintenance and the Slack channels finally go quiet, you must confront a cold mathematical truth. Your job title, your annual performance reviews, and your Q3 deliverables are not an appraisal of your human worth. They are simply arbitrary metrics, generated by an entity that will replace your headcount within 14 business days if you collapse from exhaustion. Do not internalize a corporation's bottom line as your personal failing. When you log off, the project is no longer your reality. It is just paused data on a remote server. Stop subsidizing a multi-million-dollar company with your unpaid mental health. The ultimate defensive maneuver is cognitive detachment. Treat your career exactly as the system treats you, as a highly strategic, purely transactional exchange of services. For capital, your job is how you fund your existence. It is not the existence itself. Tomorrow morning, deploy just one of these defensive protocols during your daily sync. Observe how quickly the power dynamic shifts when you refuse to absorb the system's artificial panic. You're no longer a reactive asset. You are the architect of your own cognitive boundaries. If this briefing provided you with the tactical leverage necessary to navigate your workload and prevent burnout, acknowledge receipt by typing "Stoic Professional" in the comments below. Welcome to the inner citadel. Conserve your bandwidth, remain relentlessly rational, and I will see you at the next briefing. System logging out.